Coming up, the impact of McGirt versus Oklahoma. We meet with author and professor Robert J. Miller to talk about his new nonfiction. And an art exhibit featuring artists from the Great Plains region is scheduled to travel across the U.S. and other parts of the world. Plus, one of the hottest Indigenous fashion brands is gearing up for a huge collaboration with the National Football League. I'm Mackenzie Allen Charmley. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
Chinangale, we're so glad you could join us. We began in Oklahoma, where an appellate court says one tribal nation's territory no longer exists. Last week, the state's Court of Criminal Appeals ruled the Kickapoo Nation's lands were disestablished more than a century ago and no longer exist. The court's decision involves a case in which a Seminole citizen challenged his state conviction on 4 counts of lewd acts with a child. Attorneys for Aaron Charles Buck argue that because of the landmark 2020 McGirt ruling, the state lacked criminal jurisdiction. Buck's crimes occurred within the historic boundaries of the Kickapoo Nation. The appellate court agreed with the lower court's ruling that the territory had been ceded back to the United States in 1891. The Kickapoo tribe of Oklahoma has yet to release a statement about the ruling. We now head to Canada, where a new report revealed many First Nations children died from tainted, unpasteurized milk in residential schools. The report comes by way of the Achimawim Opaspi Society, who represent the survivors of the Blue Quills residential school. The report details the findings from documents of the Catholic leaders of the school, linking unpasteurized milk to the children's sickness. School records also show a different diet for administrators, protecting them from illness. The society believes that it was the milk that may have led to illnesses like tuberculosis. The survivors group is also attempting to excavate mass graves that were found in 2004 using ground-penetrating radar. The group is now waiting to perform the additional needed excavations. Well, one First Nation in Canada has signed a deal worth nearly $300 million. The agreement with the province of British Columbia provides a path forward for the Blueberry First Nation to protect its territory. APTN Lee Wilson has this story.
The province of BC and Blueberry River First Nation signed an implementation agreement in Prince George this week. It was a response to a 2021 BC Supreme Court decision that stated BC infringed on the First Nations Treaty 8 rights due to decades of industrial development in northeastern BC. BC Premier David Eby said the province did not want to follow past governments by fighting the decision in court. They believe the path to reconciliation is through negotiation, not litigation.
Full partnership and respect is the only way forward for the Northeast and also for our entire province. Not endless court battles and not short-term transactional relationships. The future lies in a partnership approach to land, water, and resource stewardship.
The agreement will include a $200 million restoration fund, which will go towards healing the land from industry disturbances. The First Nation will also receive over $87 million in the next 3 years from revenue sharing agreements from oil and gas projects. It will also place limits on future oil and gas developments and provide land protections. At a press conference, Blueberry River First Nation Chief Judy Desjardins thanked previous chief and council for fighting for their treaty rights and the 7-year-long court case. She said their agreement provides a new path forward.
This agreement will provide a new approach to the responsible resource development, protection of treaty rights, and management of cumulative effects in our territory. These changes are positive for everyone in the Northeast and in British Columbia. By working together, Blueberry, the province, and industry, we will be providing a pathway to address cumulative impacts and stability for resource development.
Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Kitimat.
Well, after 150 years, the Ojibwe Nation's Olympic Games are returning to Wisconsin. The Games make their return after the U.S. government banned them nearly 150 years ago. These Winter Games actually returned last year after a half dozen Indigenous men decided to get together on Madeline Island for a little sport. The games involve javelins called snakes and require participants to throw them for distance or accuracy. Native journalist Paul Demain says the return of the game coincides with the desire to revive all parts of Indigenous culture, which includes sports. And organizers say they expect even more crowds for this year's games on February 11th. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. An Indigenous art exhibit called Grounded features 15 artists from tribes in and around the Great Plains region. Northern Arapaho and Chicano artist Robert Martinez curated the exhibit that is set to tour domestically and internationally over the next couple of years. Martinez's work is included in permanent collections of the Brinton Museum, the Plains Indian Museum at the Cody Center of the West, and the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian. He is a strong supporter of education and the arts and gives back to the community through workshops, school demonstrations, and art groups. Artist and curator Robert Martinez is here to tell us more about his latest exhibit. Hi, Robert.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good. This exhibit is called Grounded, Restoring Our World Through a Sacred Harmony with the Earth and Each Other. Tell us about the exhibit and the intention behind that title.
Well, Grounded is put on by a group called a Caravan. And what they had done in the past was take artists from the Middle East and tour them around the world. And they would finally end just outside my reservation in Lander, Wyoming. The founder, Paul Gordon Chandler, who created the organization, wants to now take Indigenous art from this region and go the other way. So we'll be touring around Wyoming for 2023. Then we'll be going to the East Coast and then Europe, and then we'll finally end up in the Middle East.
You mentioned that you have tour locations scheduled across the U.S. and even in the UK and the Middle East all the way into 2025. How did this exhibit and tour actually come to be?
Well, as I said, the founder, Paul Gordon Chandler, he had been touring and ending here in my area, and I had met him a few times, and he sought me out to help with this exhibit. And in my professional art career, I've come across some great artists who do wonderful work, and I was very excited to be able to bring their artwork and their vision to new viewers out there.
And how did you go about finding and selecting the 15 artists featured in the exhibit and curating their work? I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about what people will see in this exhibit.
Well, there's quite a bit of different styles, different ways of looking at it. The theme is grounded, which is our connection to the earth and other people, whatever grounded means to each individual artist. And every single one of the artists that are in the exhibit I have known for quite a few years, but they also themselves create other opportunities for emerging artists. They have mentored other artists. They have passed on their skills, and they have educated viewers on their specific tribal customs, stories, and cultural ways. So I wanted to be able to bring their artwork to different venues out there.
So you've just had an opening reception last week for the second location of the tour. I was wondering if you could tell us how that went and what you see for the rest of the tour.
It was great. We had our second venue opening at the Nicolaitan Museum in Casper, Wyoming. There was over 200 people that showed up for the opening. They were very interested in the artwork. They made sure to talk to the artists that were there, and it was a groundbreaking exhibit, I think, for that area. I think it was very well received, and I so far have heard nothing but positive things about the exhibit.
What are your ideologies about art in Native communities, and how do you put that into your work?
Well, I'm sure many Indigenous artists would agree that we aren't represented as much as we could be. There are a few hotspots, the Southwest where Indigenous arts are more common, but in other places it's really not. So I have made it a personal goal of myself and the exhibits I try to help out with to bring in contemporary Indigenous art to new venues. That's a big goal of mine. I've been working on that with a couple different organizations since at least 2012.
And what are you hoping the impact will be from the exhibit? What are you wanting audiences and viewers to take away?
Well, the Indigenous artists in this exhibit have a lot to say about their connection with being grounded, our connection to Earth, and what that means to us, our connection to other people, how those relationships are viewed and how they're important to us. And they tell that visually in all their different styles. I think that's the main focus. But as I said, also, I want to be able to bring these artists and their creations to a new audience. People have a certain idea of Indigenous art when they think of it. And especially contemporary art is not usually what their ideal is. So I want to be able to adjust expectations of who Native people are and what Native art is.
We're wrapping up our time here, but I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite part? You're heavily involved in this process, your art in the exhibit. What is your favorite part of creating the exhibit?
Wow, that's a good question. My favorite part of the exhibit is probably seeing people moved by the individual art. At the opening the other night, there were a couple viewers that were moved to tears. I mean, they felt very strongly about the work, and it impacted them very greatly. And they were crying. I don't know. I hopefully enjoy, but I like seeing that strong reaction. I also like having those other artists that are in the exhibit. There was 3 of them that braved the snow and the ice here in central Wyoming to make it to the opening. They had a great time. They got to meet new people, and I like building those bridges.
Well, artist and curator for Grounded, Robert Martinez, thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Jared Yazzie is the Dene designer, creative director, and founder of Tempe-based OXDX Clothing. At first, Yazzie thought he would end up a graffiti or street artist, but that art took a backseat when his streetwear line became one of Indian country's premier brands. The Fashion Firebrand joins us today to talk about his upcoming Super Bowl collaboration. Hi, Jared.
Hi, good morning.
To get right into it, tell us how you transitioned from making art on walls to clothes.
Oh yeah, I was barely a graffiti artist. I was a kind of a backyard garage artist as far as graffiti goes. I really took a liking to street art. Really, I liked how it was accessible to everybody. I like how you could put your views on a wall and people could see it for free. And I think that's kind of the same for streetwear. Streetwear is clothing, t-shirts. It acts as, your own personal billboard, and you can express your views without being loud personally. Like personally, I'm not a very loud person. If I get in a conversation, I'm not very talkative about it. And I think most Native people are. We're really taught to be sort of reserved. So a way to be vocal without saying anything is through design and through T-shirts.
And I was wondering, where does the inspiration come for your designs?
I mean, the inspiration comes from everywhere. Of course, I'm a Navajo Native kid, so there's literally pottery in your house. There's baskets, there's rugs, there's, paintings. It's all around you, and it's hard not to be inspired by everyone doing work around you. I think everyone that is from a Native family is like 1 to 2 degrees away from a Native artist in your family, and so it's not hard to find that inspiration within your relatives. And Native people found inspiration through just work and being outside and working with the land, and I think that's easy to find inspiration with as well.
You briefly touched on this, but part of your brand's mission is highlighting Indigenous issues and challenging censorship. Why is that important to you?
Yeah, I think Native people didn't have a strong voice. We were always kind of put in a little silenced area for years and years and years. And I think now is the time for Native people to really be loud, step up, express the things we're thinking. And I think if you put that control and leadership back into Native hands, I think the world would be a better place for it. So I think Native leadership is needed.
So you announced a collaboration with the NFL. Talk to us about how this came to be.
Yeah, I worked with the NFL. They contacted me this past summer. NFL Origins is what it's called. And it's a program they just started last year when the Super Bowl was in Los Angeles. They worked with 4 streetwear brands within LA to sort of connect with communities, sort of give access to these brands to use the NFL logo, the Super Bowl logos, to make like a community-based line that they can release for the Super Bowl cities. So it moved to Phoenix, and we actually got a recommendation from one of the brands last year. And we were very happy that we, got noticed on that level. These are, LA brands they're big, and they're surrounded by streetwear people from everywhere. And it's a blessing to kind of be noticed by them. So we're trying to show out for Native people. We're trying to show out for Arizona. We have a collection of about 5 T-shirts and a hoodie, a water bottle, and then some magnets, because I thought it was kind of a funny touristy type of product that we could put up. I think Arizona is a real tourist spot as far as, the layout of the land around here. There's lots to see.
And what are some of the OXDX events you want to plan for 2023?
Yeah, we do a lot. Within the brand, we just opened a storefront this past year and a half ago. That's new for us. We moved just a block down from where we were. Now we have an office space, a warehouse space. We try to screen print as much as we can here in-house. And every now and then we open up our shop to allow people to bring in their own tees, their own hoodies, whatever, to kind of give new life to some old items. We screen print our original designs on them for a low fee, and then it's just a way to hang out. So we do that once a month. We're going to do that probably the Saturday before Super Bowl, just to get hype going for our collection. And also Origins is hosting an event on February 8th here in Tempe. I'll have more information on my website if you want to visit that.
Well, Jared Yazzie, thank you for joining us and telling us about your collaboration.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
At the end of the Trail of Tears, there was a promise. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote that statement in the decision issued on July 9, 2020 in the case of McGirt versus Oklahoma. A new book examines the implication of that decision. Co-authored by Robbie, Ethridge, and Robert J. Miller, A Promise Kept explores the ramification of this decision. Professor Miller joins us in studio today. He's a professor here at the Sandra Day O'Connor School of Law at Arizona State University. Welcome, Professor Miller.
Thank you very much.
To start, tell us about your new book.
Well, our book comes from this case that you just mentioned. I have called this case a bombshell. The impact on the state of Oklahoma, on all of the 39 tribal nations that are located in Oklahoma, and on the United States is going to be enormous. 43% of the state is now Indian country, where state law is limited and where tribal law is at its strongest, and lots of federal Indian law and policies apply there.
So last year's Supreme Court ruling of Castro Huerta had a huge impact. What does that mean for McGirt?
Almost all the press got that case wrong. Every headline said that the court had somehow, in the 2022 case of Castro Huerta, had cut back on McGirt. No, the Castro Huerta case had nothing to do with McGirt itself. The Castro Huerta case came about because Oklahoma is fighting McGirt, but the decision of the Supreme Court in June of 22 in Castro Huerta granted states a power over crimes by non-Indians in Indian country. That's a power that tribal nations have never had, at least according to the Supreme Court. So the Castro Huerta case did not impact McGirt itself.
You are from the Eastern Shawnee tribe. How did that impact your government?
Well, part of the bombshell that I said is that the McGirt case will affect other tribes in Oklahoma. And since McGirt was decided, as you said, in July of 2020, the Oklahoma courts have re-recognized the boundaries, the reservations of 8 or 9 other tribes. And I am wearing my tribal symbol. My tribe's reservation from 1888 is in the process of being re-recognized in the Oklahoma courts. So the McGirt decision that Indian country still exists until Congress and or a tribal nation choose to make it smaller, that is the law. And Oklahoma ignored that law for 114 years, and regrettably, the United States government allowed Oklahoma to act as if there were no tribal nations there, no reservations. And so Justice Gorsuch's opinion, and we borrowed the title of our book from the line you read. This is the opening line in his July 20 opinion. At the end of the Trail of Tears was a promise. And I knew the tribes had won the case when he opens the opinion with that line. So this is very significant to my tribe and to the other tribes in Oklahoma.
Professor Miller, what are you hoping audiences take away and readers take away from your book?
Well, the longest chapter in our book is our anticipating the consequences of McGirt. Justice Gorsuch wrote this in his opinion. He hoped that the tribes and the state and the feds could negotiate and enter cooperative agreements. Compacts, they're called. They're really just contracts to handle tax issues, criminal issues, court issues, zoning, water, Indian child welfare issues. Every one of these issues is impacted. But I've now forgotten your question, but what I hope will happen is that kind of cooperative effort. But so far, the state and the governor are still in such shock from McGirt that they are fighting the decision tooth and nail in the public press, in the courts, and probably in the back rooms of Congress. So what we predict in the book is over 30 years of litigation while each one of these little individual issues gets played out. The state has already lost a claim that it could still control surface mining of coal in eastern Oklahoma. Well, now that we know this is Indian country, the state has no power to do that. And a federal court just held that in November 9th. The state has appealed that. The state is claiming that it can still tax Native people in a certain circumstance. I'm certain that will be overruled. That decision was just in October. So I'm afraid we're going to see 30 years of litigation.
So upon compiling the book, writing the book, doing all the research, what is something unique about this case, about this story that is important to Indian country?
Well, all of Indian country is happy about the McGirt decision. It applies specifically just to the Muskogee Creek Nation. But it shows that Justice Gorsuch continues to be a pretty strong advocate for enforcing treaty rights, According to the Constitution, treaties are the supreme law of the land. And Oklahoma, in this particular situation, and as I said, regrettably, the U.S. let this happen, Oklahoma acted like these treaties didn't exist and that these reservations didn't exist. So the strongest point for all of Indian country in the whole 50 states is that Justice Gorsuch and the court upheld treaty rights, held the United States' feet to the fire and Oklahoma's feet to the fire. Because this decision is why I called it a bombshell. It's an enormous impact on the tribal governments, the state of Oklahoma, and the United States as issues of jurisdiction, taxation, criminal matters all get readjusted to this new reality.
Well, we're wrapping our time here. We have time for one more question. I wanted to ask what other projects you're working on.
Well, I'm currently writing an article with a professor from Australia about the doctrine of discovery, the United States claims to control Indian nations, and to have rights over them. This is a famous Supreme Court case that's 200 years old, Johnson v. McIntosh, that adopted the international law of colonialism that we call the doctrine of discovery. So Professor Harry Hobbs and I are comparing what the U.S. and Australia have done to maybe back away from colonialism. So that's my latest project that's keeping me busy.
Well, Professor McGirt, thank you so much for joining us to tell us about your new book.
Thank you very much.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.